In today's video, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, just had a disastrous interview on Fox News. It's just utter disgrace, gaslighting, and peak delusion. And so we're going to react to that. And also, Stephen A. Smith has stepped into some mess. He blames President Trump for the NBA's illegal sports betting problem. I know it sounds crazy as I say it. However, let's start with the first question that was delivered to the governor about Chicago's murder rate. Take a look.
Why does Chicago have the highest murder rate of all the big cities?
Well, we are not in the top 30 in terms of our murder rate. Indeed,
well,
our murder rate it has been cut in half over the last 4 years, and every year it's gone down by double digits. And if you look at all of the violent crime over the last 4 years,
here's a map.
They've all gone down.
U.S. cities, 17.47 per 100,000 population. Chicago is number one over Philadelphia, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix, Los Angeles, New York, and San Diego.
What I'm explaining to you
now
is
you're
when
talking
you want to
about
fight crime. Look, you can pull statistics up.
No,
I can
these are
too.
murders.
I'm explaining to you that our murder rate has been cut in half. And very importantly, Brett, and you got to hear this, very importantly, we've been doing the things that are necessary to bring crime down, right? We've invested in community violence interruption. We've invested in police.
Number one, he wasn't even listening to the question from Brett Baer because Brett is just focused on homicides. He's not talking about all the other crimes. So that's number one. Number two, if you guys see here on the screen, I'm going to show you two different sources that proves the point here. When you're looking at the list of just homicides, the city that comes in number one for the total number of homicides is Chicago. But Chicago does have 2.6 million people who live there. At the end of the day, no matter which way you slice it, Chicago's still top 10 in homicide rates. And that is a shame. Let's go to source number two, usafacts.org. And according to USA Facts, it says Cook County, Illinois, home to Chicago and its metropolitan area, had 805 homicides in 2023, the most in the nation. The second highest was Los Angeles. So at the end of the day, they have a homicide problem. Why can't you just admit that?
Well, you have this effort to track ICE. The Illinois Accountability Commission announced today to create this public record of federal law enforcement agents, determines how to collect testimony, hold hearings, interview individuals, record what could be used to pursue justice and accountability on them, right?
Yes.
So what do you say to the people who look at that and say, you know, ICE is taking bad guys off the streets of Chicago?
Listen. It's great. Go get Tren de Aragua. That's not what happened. Remember, they attacked a building with 130 people in it, and they got a couple of gang members. That's what you ought to do, by the way. Go after them, not the 130 people. Instead, they took everybody out of the building. They zip-tied the kids. They took some of the seniors and put them into U-Hauls for hours. And many of them U.S. citizens, legally in this country, others. And instead they detained, I mean, literally dozens and dozens of people for hours. That is not the way you do law enforcement.
Well, if he knew about how law enforcement should be done, then he would be handing over the TDA gang members to ICE when they were arrested in his state. He'd happily be handing over the criminals, but because he refuses to do so, just like all the other sanctuary states and cities, it forces ICE to do what? Go into the neighborhoods and get these criminals. Now, if people don't understand that, and I'm talking about the people who are crying at the top of their lungs about what's happening here, then they're not actually looking for what's right. They're all in their feelings and their emotions, and they don't like what they see. And instead of focusing on that, they should be focused on what are the results here? Is this going to keep our neighborhood safe? Yes or no? Of course it is if you're taking gang members off of or out of the neighborhoods. But that's not what Pritzker is all about. Now, here he is being asked, if you do catch a criminal illegal alien, should they be deported? Does he believe that? Take a look.
But do you believe any illegal immigrant charged with or convicted of a felony should be deported?
I think they ought to take the violent criminals and get them out of my state and get them out of the country. I absolutely believe that, but that's not what they're doing. They said they were going after the worst.
You don't help them because you're a sanctuary state, right?
No, we do. If you bring us a judicial warrant, we will bring you all kinds of help on the ground to go get the bad guys. That's what we want. We want the bad guys off the streets. What we don't want is for people to get racially profiled. That's what's happening right now.
And that right there is your stunning admission, ladies and gentlemen. He said that ICE has to bring them a judicial warrant. It doesn't matter if the person is arrested by Chicago PD. especially if they know he murdered someone or raped someone or robbed someone. That doesn't matter. ICE needs a judicial warrant if they're going to take this person out of Chicago. And even then, it's not possible to happen or likely to happen because ICE is not allowed inside of the jails. So how are they going to pick these people up exactly? But according to the governor, he wants a judicial warrant. He's a freaking joke.
Earlier this year, Chicago police charged 2 illegal aliens with felony murder in the killing of a 63-year-old man who was found tied up in his home. They were from Ecuador and Venezuela. Both were caught and released at the Texas border by the Biden administration in 2023. One of the suspects was in custody, had been arrested in Chicago on January 12th for trying to lure children, but was released into the community with ICE's detainer request ignored due to sanctuary policy. Like, when somebody looks at that and says, that can't be a good thing.
Brett, every person that gets held, every person that for probable cause, with due process, every person has a trial or has a hearing, and it gets determined whether or not they should be held in a jail cell or whether they get bail, right? Those things have happened all over the country. And I can tell you, at least in Chicago and in Illinois, when someone is determined to be a danger to the community, they are held. That's how it works. Now, did a judge make a bad decision? Maybe so. But to pick out the situation of one immigrant, I bet you could find U.S. citizens all across the country who committed a crime who also get out and then they do something bad.
I think it's very important for me to at least bring this up. The Medicare annual enrollment period is now here. And you know what that means? There's plenty of seniors out there that are going to feel confused when it comes to picking the right plan that fits their needs. And guess what? These brokers out here are praying for that because that means they're going to make more money and then give you a plan that doesn't work for you. It doesn't matter whether you're on Medicare or you're about to get on it. Wouldn't it make sense to speak to a trusted advisor? That's why I'm encouraging you to call Chapter today. In under 20 minutes, which is completely free, by the way, they'll show you every single plan out there, compare them with you, and then recommend the one that fits your situation. Get this. And I had to write this down because I don't want to miss this. Susie, who listens to my show, she wrote in to say that Chapter found her a new prescription plan that saves her $2,200 every single year. And yes, Chapter is also on record for saving seniors $1,100 per year. So bottom line is, do not gamble with your Medicare plans. Call Chapter today at 323-431-5200. Again, that number is 323-431-5200 to talk to a trusted advisor today. I don't understand how he's the governor of that state. For the people who live in Chicago, you're going to have to help me understand here. I mean, pretty much he's making an excuse about that particular situation. And that's not the only one, clown. Well, you could just pick up only one situation. We can ramble off so many. What are you talking about? This is happening all over the country. This is why 77 million people voted for President Trump. And the fact that he's still unwilling to see that shows you how dangerous this party has become. They're not willing to crack down on crime. They don't want to get the worst of the worst out of their city, because if they did, they would be celebrating and jumping at the opportunity to hand these people over to ICE, and they don't do that.
2 more things. What's the best thing that President Trump has done since being in office?
Well, that's a good question. I think, look, one thing I can say is that I asked President Biden and wrote a very public letter to deal with some of the problems at the border. We were seeing, tens of thousands of people being sent by Governor Abbott to Chicago, and we weren't getting any help really from the federal government. Here's what I would say. Since President Trump has taken office, we don't have the problem that existed before with people coming across the border.
Well, number one, at least he was able to admit the truth about the border. I mean, you can't argue that, but Democrats still try to. That's the first thing. But more importantly, the second thing is his delusion gets people killed. Okay, I really do believe that at this point. Democrats' delusion about sanctuary city policies are getting people killed. That's not hyperbole. It's facts, and I'm going to show it to you now. Watch this.
Suspect is now charged in the shooting death of a 15-year-old boy. 19-year-old Daniel Maver is scheduled to appear in court today for a detention hearing. Police say he shot the teen and a 12-year-old boy last Thursday near 47th Street and Union, We're told the victims were in some kind of fight right before those shots rang out. At last check, the 12-year-old was in critical condition.
Now, that's just another story among all the other stories that we continue to show you every single week. It's almost a daily thing now. It doesn't take much effort for me to go find a story of someone being killed in Chicago. So if we go all the way back to the beginning of this video where he claims the homicide rate has been slashed in half and it's safer than it's ever been, that is a complete joke. It's gaslighting at the highest level. And what's even more disturbing is not just the homicides that continue to happen at the hands of illegal aliens, but it's also the fact that ICE officers are getting hospitalized because people are ramming them off the road. Watch.
When ICE agents here in Avondale tried to stop a car with a man or two men that they were interested in. Homeland Security says this all started when those two officers tried to stop that car. They say the driver then kept going to their home, which is in this area here in Avondale. Homeland says when they got to that home, the two people in that car rammed into the officer's car. They got out and ran inside, which created this barricade situation. Now, eventually, ICE agents, we were told, arrested who they were looking for.
Okay, so I think we've heard enough about ICE and how much damage that Democrats continue to do with their peak delusion regarding this issue. Let's go to our next story because it definitely involves a great deal of delusion. So, as you guys probably have heard by now, there was some NBA players and a coach that was arrested by the FBI due to illegal sports betting and an illegal poker game that was being operated in some capacity. There was some parts where the mob was actually involved in this entire scheme. And so it's a huge story, and it's something that's been going on before Donald Trump was elected as president. So keep that in your mind. But where I want to start first is what Kash Patel just said on Fox News, because Stephen A. Smith stepped into it by blaming everything on President Trump. Take a look.
Yeah, down the street. By the way, this was so wild. Stephen A. Smith, the sports commentator, suggested that this was revenge from the president for all the kind of left-wing activism of the NBA. Your response to that, 15 seconds.
I'm the FBI director. I decide which arrests to conduct and which not to conduct. That may be the single dumbest thing I've ever heard out of anyone in modern history, and I live most of my time in Washington, D.C. It's right up there with Adam Schiff. We arrest people for crimes.
So then Stephen A. Smith responded, of course, nothing to get ahead of here, people. I've never denied or failed to mention that the FBI investigation has been going on for years. I said Trump wasn't inclined to stop it. Let's just pause really quick. If you watch Stephen A. Smith, he's a master at getting people's attention. He says inflammatory things for attention. It's why he's paid so much money on ESPN, because people tune in to see what other unhinged take is Stephen A. Smith going to deliver. That doesn't mean all of his takes are unhinged. He'll say some intelligent things. He'll say things that are common sense. But if you're just focusing on sports alone, I've never actually been a fan of his commentary. I'm not really a fan of any sports commentary. I just like watching the sports. Please, let me just enjoy that. But that's just me, okay? The fact of the matter is he decided to lead his unhinged take with the president. So he knew what he was doing. And now, as a result, he's got to backtrack. He's coming. In no way am I attempting to even have an opinion on the legitimacy of this matter. I don't know the facts of the case. I'm just saying, don't expect POTUS to spare anyone on this matter, and I stand by that. That's all. The fact of the matter is, if you in no way are attempting to have an opinion, or you don't know the facts of the case, why are you speaking on it exactly? Now, the merits of the case could be summed up by watching this clip here. Take a look.
Take us inside what is likely happening in this specific investigation.
Well, Wolf, I'm going to be watching for a couple things when the FBI officials take the podium in a few minutes. First of all, how broad is this investigation? How broad are these indictments? Now, Kara just answered a big part of that when she said that the expectation is that there will be a dozen or two people involved here. Now, we know there's this current NBA coach, Chauncey Billups, a current NBA player, Terry Rozier, a former NBA player, Damon Jones. That in itself is a big deal. But who else? Who are these 24 or so other people? Are they in fact members of the mafia? I prosecuted cases like this. Are they associates of the mafia? Or is there anyone associated with the gambling enterprises themselves? Is there anyone associated with the league? We'll have to wait and see. The other big thing, Wolf, that I'm looking for is what specific charges will Justice Department prosecutors bring in this case? Because there is a federal crime for running an illegal gambling operation, but that in itself is fairly small stakes, no pun intended. The penalties there tend to be fairly minor. But when you get into the bigger charges here, you look out for charges like wire fraud, for charges like money laundering, and for conspiracy charges. If you start to see that type of charge, then we're looking at much more serious potential penalties here.
Now, what makes this entire story interesting is what Dom Lucre put on X. Breaking. LeBron James has now been linked to the FBI's rigged gambling probe. Details of LeBron James' injury status was sold by his friend and former NBA player Damon Jones as part of a massive prop betting scheme, according to court documents and law enforcement sources. Every industry except sports was exposed until now. Big pharma, politics, music industry, Hollywood, and even science. Sports was the last pillar of the man-made simulation to keep humans distracted. Well, that's a very good point from him. Now, will anything happen to LeBron James if this is indeed true? Probably not. But what I want us to focus on is what was actually involved in this scheme.
They placed wagers on unders on players to score less, rebound less, assist less, using information that was not yet public. In some instances, players altered their performance or took themselves out of games to make sure that those bets paid out. One example occurred on March 23rd, 2023 in Charlotte. Terry Rozier, an NBA player now with the Miami Heat, but at the time playing for the Hornets, allegedly let others close to him know that he planned to leave the game early with a supposed injury. Using that information, members of the group placed more than $200,000 in wagers on his under statistics. Rozier exited the game after just 9 minutes, and those bets paid out, generating tens of thousands of dollars in profit. The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash. As the NBA season tips off, his career is already benched, not for injury, but for integrity.
Good little punchline from the FBI at the end there. Well, number one, DeVore doesn't even watch basketball, just as a personal note, just so you guys understand. The last time I watched basketball was the last time Kobe Bryant was actually good, okay? that was it for me. After that, I knew the NBA would never be the same because that was pretty much the last legitimate competitor to me. That's my own personal opinion. And we already know what the NBA has been up to, especially over the past 10 years. Virtue signaling, woke statements, soft competition. They take off multiple nights. It's not a fans league. It's a players league, okay? That's what it's become. That's why nobody watches it anymore. The ratings are down. That's not my opinion. That's what the results show. So when you hear that these illegal betting and illegal poker games are happening, what are you guys doing with yourselves? It's just fascinating. These people had access to money. They don't need to do all that. Why does it matter to the average American citizen? Well, somebody's husband out there was sports betting on these apps thinking that they have a fair chance to make some money, when really they never had a fair chance because these players, and I guarantee some reps are involved here, that's just my own speculation, are manipulating these games. So yeah, it's clearly a problem. But hey, according to Stephen A. Smith, it doesn't matter if the mob was involved. It doesn't matter if an NBA coach was illegally betting. It's because President Trump is coming. Take a look.
You do not see something like this happen. Even when the scandal came down the pike involving Tim Donaghy, the former referee for the NBA, you didn't see the director of the FBI having a press conference about it. But that's what we saw this morning. And to me, it comes down to this. Trump is coming. He's coming. It's not hyperbolic. It's not hyperbole. I'm dead serious. He's coming for the National Football League. Why you think this whole Bad Bunny thing and the Super Bowl halftime show is an issue? The NBA, and conveniently, this comes down the pike after opening night for the NBA season on ESPN. The veracity and the substance of the case itself, that has to be determined. And that has to bear out, and we have to keep our eyes and ears to the grind about that to decipher, how significant this is. But there's no question that it's serious. And if you're talking about an illegal gambling operation that was taking place, whether it be poker games or anything else, don't just look at the players. Look at who they're connected to.
You don't think some of these sport betting organizations reported this to the NBA at one point in time? That there was irregularities with the betting? You don't think they reported that? The NBA already knows about that. The difference is people are finally being held accountable in regards to it. You think they just, I didn't know players are just kind of betting on themselves and purposely turning the ball over and purposely sitting out. I don't know that that's the thing. That's why they try to get on the players when they say, I need to sit out for the next 2 nights. That became an issue. Like, let's not be stupid here, folks. We're talking about human beings who are always going to game the system, even at the highest level. But again, it's about President Trump.
As a person who loves the NBA, who loves Adam Silver, who had love for David Stern, God rest his soul, who knows an abundance of people associated with the NBA, I know that there's no way, in my heart of hearts, I firmly believe, rather, there's no way they would be remotely associated with such a thing. They take these things very seriously. But when it comes to Trump, this is not about that. This is about the integrity of the league. This is about impugning their integrity. This is about making things a bit messy and inconvenient. And whoever has to suffer, so be it. And why? Because people came after him. I've said before, vengeance, retribution. The man ain't playing. And this is not me casting aspersions, making judgment, or doing anything on anybody's side. I'm just telling you what I know.
All right. So one, either this illegal sports betting is a nothing burger. It doesn't warrant the attention from the FBI. It doesn't warrant a press conference from the FBI, who literally holds a press conference about every major bust that they make. Okay, so let's put that in there as context. But sure, according to Stephen A., this doesn't happen. Okay. So secondly, then, the fact that it's finally happening, that's a good thing though, right? I mean, you say you love the game, so you would support this, right? What does President Trump have to do about this? The NBA hasn't attacked President Trump. But what he did was he tried to connect the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA. Like, the president doesn't watch the WNBA. No one watches the WNBA. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the NBA either. The only reason why this is a story is because they finally caught these people and they had already been investigated. We're dealing with an FBI that's going through every single case that was pushed to the side by the Biden administration because they were so focused on the president. Okay, they're going back through these cases and holding these people accountable. Does that really have anything to do with the president? Not in my opinion. But hey, according to Stephen A. Smith, it does. But why don't I hear what your opinion is about all these stories in the comment section below? Let's just pick up, or just give me what you think about what I just said. I mean, do you think this has more to do with the president than it does with the mobs being involved, than it does with the FBI being involved? Who do you say is really behind this move to hold these people accountable? Secondly, what do you make of J.B. Pritzker's disastrous interview on Fox News? And I just have to say, man, this guy, I don't know how he gets elected. I don't know how the people of Illinois, that state, can put up with someone like him anymore. You know he's putting people in danger, right? Just let me know what you guys think about that. And just give me all your thoughts about everything else in the comment section below. Now, in our next video, the president made a huge announcement regarding terrorists and cartel members that have been arrested. The number is higher than what Biden did in 4 years. So promises made, promises kept. If you guys missed out on that update and more from earlier today, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.